Welcome to A Walk Through Shadows. Join us as we shine a light on all things that might possibly be strange and paranormal. Each week we will share stories that may be based in fact. It could be a complete fabrication. But as always, we will discuss each of these in depth and why they matter. Hello, I'm Charlie Romans, and this is my co-host, the wonderful Samantha Romans, and welcome to A Walk Through Shadows. Now, tonight we're going to be discussing the paranormal case of John Lennon. And normally we discuss, legends and things like that. But tonight we're going to cover this, and it bears mentioning that a lot of famous people have had some strange encounters or been part of strange encounters. So, do you have any preconceived things that you want to talk about this, Sam, before we get started?
I know that a lot of people have said that outside of his apartment they've seen him. So I'm excited to hear more about, some of the other encounters they've had with him.
Okay, well, we're going to give a little bit of background, and we're going to give three stories, some of which may be true and some may be a total fabrication. So, without further ado, I'm going to wade right into it. In the archway of the Dakota apartment building, shots rang out at approximately 10:50 p.m. Mark David Chapman had fired 5 shots, hitting John Lennon 4 times in the back. The 40-year-old musician was pronounced dead at Roosevelt Hospital. Soon after, reports began of his spirit lingering around the entrance of the Dakota. He is most often described as having an eerie glow or as looking completely solid, wearing his iconic white flare-legged pants. Years before he died, John told his son, Julian, that if he passed away, he would send him a white feather as a sign. Many years later, while in Australia, an indigenous tribal elder unexpectedly gifted him, Julian, uh, with a large white swan feather. The elder said she heard a voice tell her to take the feather to Julian and ask him to use his voice to help preserve indigenous culture and the environment. Julian immediately recognized the sign from his father and started the White Feather Foundation. Lennon's widow, Yoko Ono, says she often felt his spirit close to her in the apartment they shared. One morning, she even saw Lennon. He was seated at his piano, bathed in morning sunlight. He looked at her and said, "Don't be afraid. I am still with you." Paul McCartney has stated he feels John's presence and regularly interacts with him through vivid dreams, calling these recurring dreams reunions. Paul says they hang out, talk about life, and collaborate on music, just as they did in the Beatles. In a 2019 interview on CBS News, he recounted a recurring dream where he is trying to play his bass, but it is covered in sticky tape and he's trying to peel it off while talking to John. During the creation of the final Beatles track, Now and Then, Paul experienced a highly vivid dream where he interacted with John. John was alive, laughing, and speaking as if no time had passed. The dream left McCartney in tears. In 1995, during the time the remaining Beatles were adding their parts to the recording John had made for the song Free as a Bird, Lennon appeared to the band in the form of a white peacock. As Paul, Ringo, and George posed for the photograph outside the recording studio, the large bird wandered into the shot. The bandmates all agreed it was John joining them for the occasion. John's first wife, Cynthia, said in 1966 John received a letter from a psychic warning him that he would be shot while living in the United States. From that time forward, John developed an interest in spiritualism and started attending seances. At one seance, the spirit of manager Brian Epstein warned Lennon he would be shot and to take care. In 1969, while on vacation in Greece, he was warned by an astrologer that he would be killed on an island. Believing the astrologer was referring to the Greek Isles, he returned home. Years later, his widow, Yoko, realized the astrologer was referring to the island of Manhattan. Strange stuff. The Dakota building was reported to be haunted well before the murder of John Lennon. Ironically, Lennon himself frequently reported encountering a crying lady ghost in the hallways of the historic building while he lived there. John Lennon summed up his beliefs by saying, I am an optimist about eternity. I believe in life after death. I believe that death is not an end, but a beginning. That's some pretty interesting stuff, pretty some interesting background. Um, and of course, the Beatles were famous for a lot of stuff. And there was the dust up where even started burning Beatles albums because they said that John Lennon said that they were more popular than Jesus. Even though at the time he was probably fairly accurate about that. Uh, the band, every member of the band had some connection to some sort of spiritualism. And of course, there's a famous time that they spent in India with the Maharaja and all this other stuff, and the all the yogis and everything. And George Harrison was exceptionally into it. And in fact, he wrote the song "My Sweet Lord," which, if you really listen to the words, is about Hare Krishna, even though it has been appropriated and sung in Christian churches for decades now. So it's strange that John Lennon was surrounded by the paranormal basically all of his life and believed in it. And he was warned numerous times, according to this account, that he was going to be assassinated and going to be killed. And I don't know if it was a fatalism or, you know, just an acceptance of it or a belief that things are going to happen that are going to happen. I know my own father, he was very fatalistic about it. He said, you're not going to go until your time comes, but when your time comes, you will go. So I don't guess it pays too much to avoid it.
Which he kind of prophesized his own death, though, because in an interview he said that the Beatles as a whole would either be uh, killed in a plane crash or picked off by wackos.
Well, it seems to be the case that when you achieve that level of fame, and you have to understand, the Beatles were the first, well, honestly, the first mega rock band. They talk about the British invasion when they talk about music, but the British invasion could never have happened if it hadn't been for the Beatles invasion. I mean, you had people all the way from what they call teeny boppers, young girls, to middle aged women throwing articles of clothing, we'll say, at them and mobbing them when they got off the airplane. So uh, that level of popularity, and I'll go ahead and say it, that level of hero worship
Mhm.
has a darker side to it because once people become so invested, then they become proprietary and they think that the object of their desire somehow owes them. And it's very strange and bizarre. And once they became, quote unquote, the Beatles, then their lives weren't really their own.
We got a comment that says, after his mother Julia was hit by a car and killed, John said she visited him.
Yeah, that now it depends on how you look at it. Was it a child wanting to solace himself? Was it an actual visitation? Uh, there's several different schools of thought on this. And it's like I was thinking while I was reading this about uh, John having the vivid dreams and everything. It's actually biblical. I mean, in the Christian Bible, that old men shall have visions and young men shall dream dreams. So, in the actual religious text, it really kind of verifies that these things happen. So, perhaps John's mother did come to him to comfort him. And uh, Another thing I was going to mention too, of course, John Lennon, I guess, is most famous for the song "Imagine," for his own personal
Mm.
creation, and a lot of people take the song "Imagine" as anti-religion. Now, it could be taken that way because one of the lines is imagine there's no religion. I mean, it says it right in the song, right? But there's a difference between religion and faith. There's a difference between religion and belief. At no point through any of this did John Lennon say he was, for instance, an atheist and didn't believe in any divine being. I think that I always took the song, and you can agree with me or disagree as you choose, but I always took that song to be interpreted as, imagine that people didn't get involved in religion and muck up the works and make everyone else miserable. That's the way I took it. So, but so what? Do you have any other thoughts on that?
I mean, if he had been visited by ghosts his whole life, you know, that could have kind of made it to where he could visit, because if he believed in it enough, that could have possibly been why, his spirit is so strong,
Right.
because if you really believe in something, then, that's,
Well,
you know,
you're
big
right.
part of it.
You're on the right track there, and I think another tangential track to that could be this. It's the belief of others that helps shore things up too.
Mhm.
uh, to paraphrase Shakespeare, there is nothing good or evil, but believing makes it so. I believe that's Shakespeare. I could be wrong. Might want to double check me. But the thing of it is, belief is a very strong and powerful thing. So, uh, all these people who research the paranormal and your quote unquote ghost hunters, they talk about ghosts using mechanical things like telephones and cameras and stuff like that to draw juice from to gain the energy to manifest. Well, what if, in the instance of John Lennon, when after he was assassinated, so many people wanted that to not have happened? So
Mhm.
many people wanted John to come back that maybe it gave his spirit enough energy to manifest. We don't really know. It's kind of hard to qualify that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got a little off track there and started discussing before we read our stories. So we'll go back to this and we'll talk about this some more. Okay, now I'm going to share three stories about John Lennon. John Lennon was not buried and did not have a funeral. His ashes were spread in Central Park in the area now known as Strawberry Fields. It is marked with a memorial that just has the single word imagine. It was at this marker that a group gathered on October 9th, 2020, to commemorate Lennon's 80th, what would have been Lennon's 80th birthday. Most of the crowd had gathered throughout the day, but the final group waited until after dark to get together. They carried lit candles and dressed in Beatles shirts. They formed a circle around the monument to John Lennon and started to sing the song Imagine. As soon as it would end, someone would start the song again. Most of the people gathered there had closed their eyes to feel the moment. More than one had tears on their cheeks. A lot of powerful emotions there. Also a source of energy, powerful emotions. Soon a few of those gathered began to hear footsteps approaching. They assumed it was another fan coming to join. Suddenly a scream pierced the night. The group turned to see John Lennon standing less than 6 feet from their circle. The witnesses all confirmed it was definitely Lennon, and he was solid, not ghostly at all. Some claim they thought it was an impersonator until what happened next. Lennon smiled, looking around the circle, then faded away. The group has met every year since then to try to replicate the experience. A second story. John Lennon's murderer, Mark Chapman, said he was visited in prison by the ghost of his victim. He reported that Lennon understood and had forgiven him, telling Chapman that he was in a glorious place and held no negative feelings toward him. The state of New York and Lennon's family have a different view. The family sends letters to the parole board encouraging Chapman to stay behind bars, and his parole has been denied 14 times. Chapman went on to say John Lennon stayed and comforted him through the night after he'd been beaten by angry fellow inmates for his actions in killing Lennon. Not many inmates believed him, but one inmate on the same cell block reported he also heard John Lennon's voice talking to Chapman. Okay. Third story. By the time John Lennon arrived at Roosevelt Hospital, there was nothing anyone could do. The attending doctor stated the staff was devastated, but it was too late by the time he reached them. And with the amount of internal injuries and the blood loss, if they'd been there on the scene, John Lennon would still have succumbed to his injuries. Even knowing this did little to make the staff involved feel better. But from beyond, John Lennon did what he could do to let them know he knew they did their best. Several heard Lennon's songs at unexpected times, such as in the elevator. Three people, including one of the EMTs with the ambulance, caught a glimpse of a man that looked suspiciously like Lennon over the next few days, and the doctor that signed the death certificate actually saw Lennon smiling outside the glass door to his office. And those are some pretty potent stories. And any of those three could be true. So let's pour some more coffee and discuss what happened here.
Well, in that first story, I know at least the first part of it is true because
Okay.
his ashes were in fact,
Mhm.
placed at Strawberry Fields.
Right. But there are, and the way you said that, it points out that some things we do know to be truth,
Mm-hmm.
but often uh, not necessarily falsehood, but misdirection can be hidden with
Mhm.
facts.
Yeah.
So,
It's like in the third story, um, the fact that they really couldn't do anything is also true. So,
right, yes.
there is a little bit of truth in at least those two stories.
Well, see, everybody wants to play the what if game,
Mm.
of course, in that case. And, it's a very real thing, survivor's guilt and just general guilt.
Mhm.
Because you think that you could have done more. The fact that if I had been there, I would have done this, I could have done that.
Yeah.
And it's a very terrible, morbid game people play with themselves that really darken their lives.
Yeah.
But so uh, the time that the Beatles, well, honestly, you technically could say the Beatles music is still popular.
Yeah.
uh, but the Beatles were kind of a whole new thing that set the world on its ear. We had four very talented individuals, different personalities, all good at what they did. And of course, the songwriting team of Lennon and McCartney rather, gave us so many songs, so many memorable things that span generations. And I know you grew up listening to the Beatles because the Beatles were always playing around here.
Yeah.
But there are people that even if their parents didn't listen to the Beatles, they hear these songs and these songs still call to people. Now, why do you think that is?
I think they had a good grasp on the emotions of people and the inner workings of people.
Mhm,
So I think that, you know, they made a lot of things that, they knew would please those people.
mhm.
I think that they were very good at that.
Well, I agree with that. I think that they grasped the outrageous um, and of course, the hidden meanings too. And them spending time in India I don't think was necessarily what enlightened them. It was just more opened up more of the things they were
Mhm.
interested in. So, but here's these people that were involved in these things, and it there's a better than good chance that every single one of them had exposure to. Well, they're all English, so they obviously they had exposure to at least the Christian religion. And then in later years, George Harrison specifically, I think, was searching for something.
Mhm.
And I think his search was sincere. So uh, it stands to reason that when something like this had happened, and a lot of it comes back to the promise. See, I think by him saying it wasn't some sort of just flippant answer. Not like me telling you, well, I plan to live forever, but I don't know how that's going to work out. I mean, that's just a flippant statement, okay? But I think actually, when if John actually took the time to tell his young son that if he passed away, he would float a white feather to let him know. I think that it was something that he was definitely interested in. And now, fans, of course, are fans, and they really love the people that they glorify. And I'm not saying that necessarily in a negative way, but possibly it is, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe I don't really know for sure. I never, of course, met John Lennon while he was living, and I've not seen John Lennon since he passed away. So I have no direct knowledge of it. But yeah, you never know. I mean, maybe that his you'd have to call it the fan base, people who loved John Lennon and are giving putting that energy out, and maybe that is something his spirit could draw on to manifest. I mean, it's not something Paul McCartney obviously has some sort of regular interaction with Lennon, but that's understandable because they were such close friends. So
I think too, like, even if it's not like really a ghostly encounter, like, like any of those stories could be true just because somebody wanted them to be true. You know what I mean? Like, if you want something enough, you're going to see it, whether it's really there or not.
right, I mean, we do have well, we do have a bad habit of forcing the dots to connect. We'll say. Uh, I call it uh, well. Um, we have preconceived notions, and we make that happen. And it's kind of like, uh, and I've used this example before. I'm not sure if I've used it on here, but it's one of my favorite examples. Used to be this test, funny little thing. They'd, on a sheet of paper or something like that, there'd be like 20 pennies. And the trick was to find the penny that was turned backwards. And because the human brain is wired to see things a certain way, it's difficult to go through and pick out the one that's backwards simply because your brain wants to have a steady pattern. And I think that's the way a lot of these things happen. Which is not to say that Lennon hasn't manifested.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long line of famous people that have been seen as ghosts.
Yeah.
I remember reading a lot about like the state the nation's capital, for instance. There was a very popular ghost story back in the day about they would see a junior senator rushing to the steps to cast the vote. He died on his way to cast the deciding vote. So that spirit was caught in a loop trying to get to that. And of course, people have seen Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial and things of that nature too. So, I mean, do these things happen? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's difficult to prove. Now, if you're one of those people that have experienced that, then it's like I've told people before on my other podcast, Shadows of Legends. Once you have had an encounter, it's no longer about belief or disbelief. You have knowledge of it, and then it's just about whether you can have enough evidence to persuade other people. But I think that in a strange way, it's comforting. I mean, to that your loved one isn't just gone.
Yeah.
I know years and years ago, I had interviewed uh, some people about ghost hunting, and it was the first time I'd met them in person, and we're all sitting there, and of course, I'm there in a professional capacity, so everyone is calling me Mr. Romans. And my first name, of course, is Charles. Uh, so I do this interview, And I come home and I plug the recorder into the computer, and I'm listening to the interview, start to write the story, and I'm like, wait a minute, what was that? So I back it up and listen to it again. I'm like, yeah, that's odd. So I back it up the third time, and I yell at my wife, and she comes in here, and I said, just sit down, put the headphones on, hit play. And when I did that, her eyes opened and her jaws dropped because there's a very clear voice in the middle of this conversation. I had said something kind of silly, trying to be lighten the mood and everything. And this voice says, Charlie, just like that. And I still have the EPP. And of course, my wife says, oh my God, that's your mother's voice. And my mother had been dead for a year. So hearing that is a comfort,
Hmm.
even though I have beliefs and my mother had serious beliefs and everything else. Knowing and having that instance, it can be a comfort. So, especially when someone's taken away from you in such a brutal and shocking manner,
Yeah.
and a life interrupted before its time, because John Lennon was not an old man when he sang,
No.
and it adds insult to injury. The person who assassinated Lennon was a fan.
Well, it's like Selena
Yeah,
was killed by the leader of her fan club.
yeah, I think
So it's wild what fans will do to just be close to their idol. It's ridiculous.
so. Remember, kids, don't always wish to become a celebrity. It may not be as fun as you think it is. Uh, but anyway, let's get back to this, and we'll go ahead and discuss these stories and why we think they are true or false. Okay, now um, get back to the beginning. All right. About the, I guess you could call it a vigil
Mhm.
at John Lennon's memorial in Central Park. Now, honestly, as I said before, I don't, and I never met John Lennon uh, either before or after he was assassinated. But I like to think of the things that I've watched and seen, and what I know of at least his public persona. I'd like to think that would be something he would do.
Honestly, I feel like all three of them are something that he potentially would do
Well,
because he was all about like peace and love and
yeah,
stuff like that. So him forgiving his killer seems kind of right up his alley too.
yeah, it does because and like in this one interview, and I'm not even going to attempt to quote him, but what had happened in this one interview, they'd asked him, "So what would you do?" He's talking about peace and love, and what would you do if someone were to get violent with you? The answer was basically, well, brother, I don't want to fight. We'll just go on about our way,
Mhm.
you know, and basically passive resistance. Uh, and so I like to, yeah, that tracks. The second story that about you had even referenced that yourself about Mark Chapman saying that Lennon appeared to him and told him he forgave him and everything.
Which that one I feel like could be true. Not even necessarily that Lennon was ever there,
Mhm.
but just a guilty conscience wanting forgiveness. So it manufactured in his own brain because obviously he had to have been a little, you know, out of it to think that killing anyone was a good idea.
Right? Yeah.
So, I mean, even without, an actual ghost being there, I can see that one being true because he perceived it that way,
Well,
looking for forgiveness.
it could be whether I would want to think that it was true too, regardless of whether it was actually Lennon appearing and saying, "Okay, Mark, I forgive you," or Mark himself saying, well, his mind trying to salve his incredibly guilty conscience. Okay, now the third one about the staff and everything feeling guilty, even though there was no way they could have saved him, even if they'd actually been on the scene, and all the music playing at random times and the sightings and everything. What do you think about that? Do you think that was John Lennon returning in a way to try to make these people feel better because he knew they tried to save his life?
I feel like that's on the kind of same vein as the second story. Like, I feel like even if, his ghost actually wasn't there, these people could have seen him to kind of appease their guilt, like, and make them feel better about not being able to save him.
Okay, now I came down. I said it sounded like all of these were true,
Okay.
and you said that you thought they could all be true.
I mean, I'm not saying 100% that they are true, but I feel like I can see any of them being true.
Okay. Now, I peeked while we were talking, but I had to remind everyone, of course, that I did say that I thought that they were true, when in fact, all of these stories are fakes. They are fabricated. Uh, However, the earlier part, before we started reading the stories about the white feather and everything being presented to Julian Lennon, that actually happened. Uh, so the thing of it is, uh, we really don't know. We don't. Ghostly visitations might be a comfort, it might be a terror. I've thought about this before. Of course, I'm not a spring chicken, right? So, and my parents have both passed away, right? So we miss our loved ones. And even though my father was the most infuriating person on the planet, with the possible exception of me, uh, miss him. But now, if he would actually walk through the front door and ask for a cup of coffee, not really sure if I would be comforted or I would be actually horrified. So, so we never really know, and uh, we don't know how we'll react until faced with that situation.
I don't know, like, so for a little background, I live in the house that my grandparents lived in while they were alive.
Yes.
And like, I've had a lot of like weird things happen at the house. And I do find it comforting, because I feel like they're still there, and they're still like looking out for me. So, like, a lot of like my friends that come over are like, "Oh my gosh, it's super creepy here. You can feel stuff." But I'm just like, "Yeah, but it's probably my grandparents." So it's like, okay, So I find it comforting. Although that being said, if I saw one of them just walk in the living room, I probably would be a little taken aback.
Yes. Yes. So the sighting of any spirit is startling, to say the least. And I've interviewed numerous people on the Shadows of Legend podcast. Some professionals, professional ghost hunters, and people along those lines. But most of the people I talk to are individuals. As a matter of fact, the tagline is "Ordinary people, extraordinary encounters." Because ordinary people, when they see these things, it's to them it's real, and there's a better than good chance that it would be real to anyone. But like I said earlier, uh, I tell these people, when you've had the encounter, it's knowledge. It's not belief or disbelief. At that point, you've seen something. So, and for the record, if I were to come back from the great beyond, uh, it would be to benefit you or your mother or someone else they cared about. So
My
yeah,
coffee pot will just start going off in the middle of the night. And you're like, oh, well, that's dad.
yeah, or it just mysteriously empty itself.
Yeah.
So and the inevitable coughing and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, when my father passed away, he had this really terrible thing about. He used to tell my younger sister who lived with him, he'd constantly get on her to shut the cabinet door, and so uh, not too long after he had passed away, I reminded Angel, I said, look, if you want Dad to come visit, go open the cabinet doors and walk out of the room. so, it's kind of hard, but uh, back to the subject of John Lennon. Uh, he did have a meteoric rise to fame. Uh, he had a lot of tragedy in his youth and a lot of powerful emotions throughout his life. Now, I'm not going to canonize the guy, but people in similar circumstances have done far worse. So it would be comforting to think that he could reach out and at least talk to the people he cared about and say, hey, look, I'm okay. I'm in a better place. We're in at least as good a place.
Mhm.
And let people know and give us a little bit insight into the great beyond.
Yeah, I think that you know, he definitely did the people that mattered to him, appear to them
Mhm,
and, give them some comfort. Because like with the white feather,
mhm,
he obviously found that comforting.
right.
Because he, started the foundation, so he didn't like, oh gosh, like he was like, this is a good sign. And like with Yoko Ono, him being at the piano and stuff, that's probably his most natural state to her.
Mhm.
So, I feel like he did provide that comfort that they needed.
I think that there's a distinct possibility that that's true because uh, we don't really know what happens when we pass away. We have our beliefs and we have some evidence of that, I think. But it doesn't explain every nth detail.
Mm.
So it's possible that we can reach out to our loved ones from the great beyond.
Yeah.
Different cultures across the planet uh, have believed that.
Mhm.
So uh, it's possible.
And I have to think like if multiple cultures all believe the same thing, you know, whether it's just the smallest detail
Mhm.
or like, a really big idea, you know, there's got to be some kind of truth to it because how else will everyone across the planet that, especially before, there was really contact between, continents and stuff,
Right.
how do they all come up with the same idea? You know what I mean? Like it kind of seems like it has to at least be a little true.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's differences throughout cultures, and like the Greeks believed the afterlife was one way, and then the Norse believed it was an entirely different way, and uh, then of course you have other cultures that believe that our ancestors never really pass away; that
Mhm.
they're close to us. Uh, so, I mean,
Although one thing that I'm hoping is true
okay,
is, all these people thought dragons were real. So I'm hoping that maybe the dinosaurs are dragons, but
well, it's funny, that you'd mentioned that. I know this has nothing to do with
Mhm.
John Lennon, but your mother and I was talking about this the other day. Uh, Dinosaurs. We find these bones.
Mhm.
Okay. We weren't there when that creature was alive.
Yeah.
So there may have been only 50 T Rexes, for instance. I'm just throwing out an arbitrary
Mhm.
number, but those are the bones we found.
Mhm.
So we're thinking, oh my God, there's like thousands and thousands of T Rexes running around. Well, no, there was 50 of them. You found all the bones.
Mhm.
Uh, that's a possibility. So when people say, well, this can't be real and that can't be real because we haven't seen it, well, you know, we only know what's right here.
Yeah.
And if something right here is very interesting, we don't look anywhere else. It's like we're discovering species and everything else, and measurements. We're discovering. Well, one of my favorites is, and I throw this out there. The ancient people believed that there were veils between realms. You had the realm of the living, the realm of the dead, the realm of sleep, and all these other different realms, and there were veils between them, like curtains. And sometimes the curtains would fold over, and you could get lost in the folds and end up between one realm and another, or the fabric of that veil was thinner, so you could see into that other realm at certain times of the year or certain places of the planet. Okay, now this went on for centuries. Of course, they believe this. Um, in the last 20 odd years or so, science has come up with that wonderful thing, uh, quantum physics, and the possibility of a multiverse, which, if there's different dimensions and they're just layered up against each other, and sometimes you can, go between one another, or isn't it the same as a veil? Maybe these old guys and ladies weren't as stupid as we thought they were.
And I know a lot of people say, like, you dreaming is your alternate life.
Mhm.
So, like, in the case of Paul McCartney, like, maybe there is a universe out there where John Lennon wasn't killed, and that's the reason why he was going on like nothing happened,
Right,
because in his dreams he's in the reality where John Lennon's still part of the Beatles and still, doing his thing and
right.
still writing songs with him.
Well, yeah, yeah, not on that explanation. Every decision splits off into an alternate timeline.
Mhm.
We get them, excuse me, the realm of uh, quantum physics and comic books, okay, science fiction, but uh, yeah, a lot of things are fiction until we can prove them.
Mhm.
But it is possible that in one timeline, Mark Chapman missed John Lennon,
Yeah.
and
Or just chickened out.
or just chickened out. Yeah. So the possibility exists
Mhm.
that he really is talking to them, and it's like we talked about emotions generating energy. Well, maybe McCartney, and he can call me out on this if he wants, but maybe McCartney had just such a powerful connection and
Mhm.
friendship to his friend that his emotions were so strong that it gave him, the ability to breach this.
Yeah.
So, and there's so much we don't know about how things work. Uh, we want to say, well, this is this and that's that, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Until somebody comes along and says, no, wait, you forgot the other thing that's actually the most important
Mhm.
thing. So we never really know. Uh, but it does make for an interesting walk through shadows, to wonder and then to contemplate what could have happened and what actually is
Mhm.
happening. Because, it's like, for instance, right now, I know there's things out in the field next to my house. Now, I'm not talking about supernatural things. I mean, there's animals, there's everything out there. I can't hear them, I can't see them. I know they're there, but I have no real proof of them other than I think I've seen them before. Maybe at some point we'll be able to view and gather information from multiple locations at the same time and get a better idea of how things actually are.
Mhm.
But Lennon having such a turbulent life. Now, he wrote with McCartney, I mean, he wrote some incredibly silly songs, which fun songs. I've always thought, what was up with Obla Di Obla Da? Okay, I wonder about that.
Well, at the end of the evening, he's a singer in the band. That's all that
There you
matters.
go. Right. And yeah, I guess it's good to be a singer in the band. But then there's songs like uh, Eleanor Rigby, very grim song,
Mhm.
Fool on the Hill, and of course, Imagine, and songs like All You Need Is Love.
Mhm.
When you have that much powerful emotion and it's focused, who knows what can happen?
Yeah.
So maybe, maybe he is talking to people from the great beyond. We'll never know.
I feel like if somebody was going to have the power to do it, it would be John Lennon.
Well,
Because,
yeah,
so many fans, so many people rooting for you, like that's a
absolutely.
lot of power.
Yeah. So, and yeah, you're right, because that sort of support, that sort of fan base, if it could, if the possibility exists to generate enough energy to let someone manifest from the dead, he would be one of them.
Yeah.
Now, of course, your modern anagrams for that would be someone like Taylor Swift, for instance. Uh, don't really listen to the music. She can sing. She got a pretty voice, and she has millions of fans that love her. So, yeah, that generates a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So, but do you have any more thoughts on that?
Um, and just that, I do think, like we were saying, if anyone would have the power to do it, it would be John Lennon. And I think too, like, not only that, but he was so spiritually connected that I feel like that kind of gives him power too, because, it's kind of like he could see the inner workings before he ever passed. So, he would kind of be able to, breach that if it was possible.
I think you're right about that. I mean, you listen to some of the lyrics. Like I said, some of the lyrics are just silly. Like Rocket Raccoon and Rocky Raccoon, rather. Sorry, I slipped in the comic books for a second.
Oh,
But, uh, and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, stuff like that. But then on the other hand, you have lyrics that really tug at the heart. So, what have we got here?
we got a comment that says, "When I saw your promo mentioning Lennon, immediately thought of his song 'Nobody Told Me' that mentions UFOs over New York, and I ain't too surprised. It allegedly echoed an actual sighting by Lennon."
That's great that you bring that up, because that is actually one of my favorite Lennon songs, because it actually showcases the strange, over the top qualities of life, and implies, well, nobody told me there'd be days like this. Maybe I wouldn't have tried it, but you're right, when you have uh, the open mindedness to believe, then so many things are possible. Now, I'm not talking about someone that will just believe anything you tell them, but I think Lennon had an open mind, and possibly, he acknowledged the possibility of UFOs.
We got another comment that said he did see a UFO. So,
Excellent. Well, there you go. Then you have then it would apply what I said earlier, that if he saw it, then he had knowledge. It wasn't about belief or disbelief.
mm,
And a lot of times when you share knowledge like that, it engenders ridicule, which is why a lot of people keep it to themselves.
but I do think though, like he was so popular that I feel like it would be hard to not believe him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because whenever somebody is that popular, everybody takes it as true, whether it's true or not. So, I feel like he didn't really have to worry about being ridiculed because, you know, if anybody was going to see it, it'd be him, that kind of thing.
Right. Just a couple of things there. For one thing, he obviously have nothing to prove. Uh, Whether he's mentioned UFOs or not, it wouldn't affect his selling records at all.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I already reached a pinnacle in his career. So it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
believe me or not. So there was no reason for him to lie about it.
Yeah. I think that's another big thing too. Like, no reason to lie. You know, it wasn't going to make him more famous.
Right.
And the worst thing it could do is hurt his career. But he was already so popular that it probably wouldn't have hurt his career anyway.
No, it wouldn't have. I mean, well, you're talking about a man who took off time at the height of popularity to just raise a kid, and then came right back at it as though he had never left. That's virtually unheard of.
Yeah.
Because because there's so many popular people, and especially musicians, it comes down to the, oh, well, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when you're connected like that, uh, possibly his own belief in the spiritualism and everything allowed him to come back to his loved ones.
Yeah, I think that, you know, how spiritual he was and how, much power he would have from the popularity. I feel like if anybody was going to come back, it'd be him. And I think that that too is why a lot of like ghosts are of famous people,
Mhm.
because I think that they have that power because of their following.
Well, this is true, and then it could just be, and so you're walking down the street, and you see somebody who is misty and translucent. You kind of blink your eyes, and they're gone. It's just something. I'm just seeing things,
Yeah.
double image. But and if you think, Lord, that's John Lennon over there.
Yeah.
Or it's Genghis Khan standing there next to the daycare center. That's not a good thing. Okay, so it gets your attention more.
Hmm.
So, but I think that we're adjusting our time a little bit tonight to accommodate another show. So we'll be signing off here just a little bit early. And well, thank everybody for walking with us through the shadows, and hopefully we can all become a little more enlightened. And next time we'll discuss something else that's strange and has been casting dark shadows over the world for centuries. Possibly some of the future episodes might be. I wanted to do one about the restless dead, not ghosts. I mean, we're talking about actual physical manifestations.
Hmm.
And a whole list of things. And if there is any subject that you would like us to discuss, feel free to reach out here or just send me an email, charlie@charlieromans.com. All lowercase, all one word. So for right now, we are going to say goodnight. And if there's anything that we can do to research for you, please let us know. Thank you very much. Thank you for being our companion on this week's walk through the shadows. Join us next week when we will share more stories of the paranormal. Until then. This quiet path is all